Part 76. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 751. However, it was obvious that Wang Feng was not prepared to give them the dawn they wanted. Shut up. Wang Feng grabbed the microphone handed over by Liana and shouted directly. Before dealing with your affairs, I will first reward some people. These people are very good. They may have noticed that the tall military spirit monument blocked part of the sunlight in the green water garden, so they started to demolish it. Now, all these people stand up. I don't have to find them one by one. Let's save some time. I still have a lot of things to do. In addition, don't the rest of you have something to say to me? It's best to assist me, because I won't deal with other things before solving this matter. In other words, only after finding all those who have participated in pushing down and smashing the military spirit monument, I will listen to your request. Oh. By the way, there is also the leadership team that issued this order. After speaking, Wang Feng put down the microphone and stopped talking, just looking at the crowd in front of him. After hearing Wang Feng's words, the crowd was silent for a while, and then immediately became chaotic, with voices coming one after another. This guy was the one who smashed the most at the beginning. And these few, they issued this order. He, and him. They all participated. Old Wang and the others also participated. Push them out. Hurry up and get out, don't waste our time, do you think you can escape? I saw you smash the military soul monument with my own eyes. Didn't you smash it too? Why don't you go out? Bullshit, I didn't find a hammer, so I just watched the fun from the side, this doesn't count. It's not you who said whether it counts or not, you also come out with me. Wang Feng and the people of Zizhu continent didn't need to take action at all. The survivors who were originally left in the Hope base took the initiative to identify those who had participated in smashing the military soul monument and pushed them to the front. Although some of those people were stronger than the ones who caught them, under the supervision of Wang Feng and the survivors of Zizhu continent, no one dared to do anything. Looking at the scene in front of him, Wang Feng couldn't help but sigh, watching these people rushing to push their former companions out of their team. Then he quickly retreated back into the crowd, as if he was afraid of being implicated by them. Soon, a circle was vacated in the crowd, and in the circle were the survivors who were pushed out by the crowd and participated in smashing the military soul monument. And the others were separated from them and surrounded them in the middle. Are there any more? Wang Feng stepped forward, looked at the crowd in front of him and shouted. It's better to stand up yourself. If you are pulled out by me, I'm afraid it won't be so beautiful. The survivors looked at each other, and in the end no one stood up again. Humph. Wang Feng pulled the corner of his mouth, revealing a hint of sneer, then put down his right hand holding the microphone, turned his head to look at number 7 beside him, and nodded. After receiving the order, number 7 immediately flashed and rushed directly into the crowd. Then, number 7 returned to Wang Feng again, holding a person in his hand. Wang Feng smiled, then picked up the microphone and said loudly. Not only him, but also any of you who have stood up. I can tell you that as long as you participated in it, none of you will escape today. The reason why I only caught one person is because I hope you will stand up by yourself. You can enjoy the fate of those who were pulled out by me now. Then, Wang Feng smiled at number 7, and number 7. Number 7 was still holding the survivor he had caught, without any movement, but the tall and burly man in his hand, who was about 1.8 meters tall, suddenly screamed. With the scream, the man's body began to shrink and his face began to age slowly. However, under the deliberate maintenance of number 7, he aged very slowly, but in this way, he suffered more pain. The whole process lasted for 5 minutes. During these 5 minutes, the man's screams changed from shrill to miserable, and then to a sound that did not sound like a human being, until it slowly weakened. In the end, the burly man was already dying, and his appearance became that of an old man who looked more than 100 years old. At this time, the sound coming out of the man's mouth was a kind of, although very small, but it made people who heard it shudder, a very strange groan. "How long did you stay?" Wang Feng saw that number 7 stopped devouring the man's life energy, so he asked. "More than a month." Number 7 replied. The people around were confused, and only Wang Feng and number 7 understood the meaning of their conversation. However, Wang Feng obviously did not intend to hide the secret between them. He picked up the microphone, smiled and looked at the crowd in front of him, then said loudly, "Don't worry, this man is not dead, and he still has more than a month to live. It's just that he has to live in this state for a month, and he doesn't even need to eat or drink. He could feel the failure of his body's organs, and he could feel hunger and thirst, but he was completely powerless and couldn't even commit suicide. All he can do now is lie here like a dead dog and spend the remaining month of his life. The good news is that this month, the pain he has experienced is probably only 1/10 of what he experienced just now." After hearing Wang Feng's words, everyone's eyes fell on the big man who was clinging to the ground because number 7 let go. He was seen hunched over his body and kept making chilling moans on the ground. However, although his body was trembling, his hands and feet did not move at all. It seems that what Wang Feng said is true. He is obviously still experiencing pain, but he does not even have the ability to commit suicide. "I can only suffer like this for more than a month before I can get relief." Yes, it is relief. For this guy, death is definitely what he longs for now. I can tell you that now, there are not many people who can still get such treatment. Wang Feng's voice sounded again. "The Devourer clan has been completely destroyed by us, and even the brood has been killed by us. The person standing in front of you is the last Devourer in this world. Those who participated in smashing the military soul monument but did not take the initiative to stand up will receive exactly the same treatment as this person. If any of you think this guy is too pitiful and want to accompany him, I have no problem with it. If you don't come forward after I've beaten you dozens of times, I'll admire your courage." 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Afterwards, Wang Feng didn't leave those people any time to think, and started the countdown directly, and the speed was very fast. When Wang Feng started counting down, hundreds of figures flew out of the crowd again, joining the survivors who had participated in smashing the military soul monument. 3, 2, 1, over. Wang Feng finally completed his countdown. Me. Me. I'm far away, wait a minute. Among the crowd, there were a few guys running desperately towards the side, raising their hands and shouting. Looking at their appearance, people who didn't know would never think that they came to accept their unknown fate because of their faults. They raised their arms high and looked eager, as if they were the lucky ones who had been called and wanted to go up to the stage to receive the prize. Because these guys were far away and hesitated, they didn't have time to rush out of the crowd and join their own team before Wang Feng's countdown ended. Wang Feng ignored those people. He just asked number 7 to devour a person's life force in front of so many people just to shock them. Wang Feng will not turn into the kind of pervert who takes pleasure in torturing others. However, smashing the military soul monument has already exceeded Wang Feng's bottom line. He is a soldier and has great respect for those soldiers who died in battle. To Wang Feng, the behavior of these people is like smashing those monuments to the martyrs before the end of the world. It is the greatest insult to soldiers. His comrades who fought side by side died, but he couldn't even protect their tombstones. How could Wang Feng have the face to command those brave soldiers and launch fearless charges? When everyone entered the middle circle, number 7 directly entered the crowd again without Wang Feng's instructions. Because number 7 is a devourer, his consciousness is quite strong and his memory is amazing. After watching the replay of the Kali tribe's surveillance, all the faces that participated in the smashing of the military soul monument were all remembered in his mind. It took more than half an hour before number 7 returned again. Even at his speed, checking so many people was not an easy task. However, it seems that the shock effect of number 7 swallowing the big man just now was quite good. After number 7 came out, he nodded to Wang Feng, indicating that no fish had slipped through the net. Nicholas. Wang Feng said to Nicholas behind him. Let those people get out of the way of the General Soul Monument site, and then please help me find some wooden stakes, more of them, at least to ensure that each of these people can have one. Wood stakes. Nicholas was stunned for a moment, then without asking any more questions, he turned around and led others to make preparations. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 752. After Nicholas left, Liana and Oscar also hurriedly asked people to move all the people on the General Soul Monument site to other places, leaving a large open space. And those survivors standing in the middle were feeling anxious at this time, not knowing what they were going to face. These people are actually not that many. All added up, there are only about 1,000 people. There were quite a few onlookers at that time, and many cheered for them. Wang Feng was not prepared to pay attention to those people. Because if all of them were counted, the number would probably be in the hundreds of thousands. Wang Feng doesn't want to commit such a large-scale massacre now. Too much killing may cause people to lose their true nature and become a murderous maniac. Nicholas returned not long after leaving, bringing with him a large number of people holding wooden stakes. Now we hope that the base will develop agriculture in an all-round way, and wooden piles are of course indispensable. Many crops need to be supported by wooden piles. Thank you. Nicholas, can you help me put all these wooden stakes in that open space? The spacing does not need to be too large, just half a meter will do. Wang Feng nodded to Nicholas and said. No problem. Nicholas suddenly realized that Wang Feng wanted to use these wooden stakes as tombstones for his fallen comrades. But that's not right. If you want to make tombstones for your comrades, why should the number be the same as those who smashed the military soul monuments? However, Nicholas didn't ask any more questions. After readily agreeing, he took the people to set up the stakes. Fortunately, they are all awakened ones, so there is no need to sharpen the wooden stakes. They can just place them directly on the ground, then push down with a palm, and a wooden stake will be erected. Due to the large number of people and the fact that it was easy to set up, Nicholas and the others completed their task quickly. The nearly 1,000 people surrounded in the middle looked at the wooden piles with anxiety, wondering what these wooden piles had to do with themselves. You. Now all go to the wooden pile, kneel in front of the wooden pile, and then use your clothes to tie your body to the wooden pile around the waist. Wang Feng turned to the survivors who smashed the military soul monument and said coldly. Whoever is not tied tightly can be his companion. After saying that, Wang Feng gently kicked the guy whose life force was devoured by number 7. However, after hearing Wang Feng's words, the nearly 1,000 survivors breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that Wang Feng intends to make them kneel there and confess their faults. Just kneel down. How can you be better than that guy? Even if he wants to kneel now, he can't get up. So, as soon as Wang Feng finished speaking, the survivors rushed to the wooden piles. Some people even, in order to show their sincerity, smashed the wooden pile down a few times to make the wooden pile more stable. Then they knelt in front of the wooden pile, took off their clothes, and tied themselves tightly to the wooden pile. On top of the pile, I saw someone smashing the wooden pile down, and the others followed suit, and they all smashed the wooden pile down several times. Because someone did it, but why didn't do it himself, which made Wang Feng dissatisfied. What should we do? Sometimes, humans are like this. After losing the courage to resist, they will try to please their enemy in every possible way, trying to make him more satisfied in exchange for their own safety. Although this is a great shame for many people, for them, whether it is shame or embarrassment, it is nothing compared to their own lives. For people like them, choosing to die rather than surrender is simply a fool's errand. Everyone is dead, no matter how good the reputation left behind is of any use. Anyway, I can't hear any more, so I can count on one more day of my life. Looking at these people, not only Wang Feng, but also Nicholas and the others felt sad for these people in their hearts. They really feel that people like this, living in the world, are simply an embarrassment to mankind. The survivors moved very quickly, scrambling to tie themselves to the wooden stakes. Moreover, they were afraid that the binding would not be strong enough and would dissatisfy Wang Feng, so they tied 2 strings around their waists and chests. At this situation, not only the survivors of Zizhu continent laughed one after another, but even the survivors of the original Hope base also laughed. Haha! These idiots are so happy to tie themselves up. Isn't it? A group of guys who are greedy for life and afraid of death may not have any future at all. Alas! If you live like them, there is no hope. These people did not expect that if it were them, they would probably be like these people. Moreover, when they pushed these former companions out just now, they didn't seem to behave very well. Seeing that all those people were about to tie him up, Wang Feng picked up the guy on the ground and walked forward. Number 7 also followed Wang Feng and walked over. Wang Feng gently placed the guy in his hand on the ground. Wang Feng didn't want to directly throw him to death. This may be this guy's biggest wish now. Number 7. Look, from now on, if any of these people dares to stand up, let him be with this guy. Wang Feng said loudly, not so much to number 7, but to these guys. The survivors kneeling on the ground looked at Wang Feng in front of them, and then looked down at the old man, who was still moaning. They all shuddered involuntarily, and secretly decided in their hearts that even if Wang Feng wanted to kill them, they would never stand up. Compared with that guy, death seemed like a very happy thing. Number 7 did not answer, but looked at the survivors kneeling on the ground. Although they were all tied to the wooden stakes very firmly by themselves, after all, they were all strengtheners or evolvers. If they really wanted to stand up, no matter how deep the wooden stake was nailed, it would not stop them at all. But now seeing the look in No 7's eyes, they would definitely not dare to stand up even if they were beaten to death. After talking to number 7, Wang Feng's figure suddenly flashed out at a very fast speed, and he actually activated his superpower that he had not used for a long time, the wind. Now Wang Feng has reached the peak of the 10th level creature, and the power of the wind has been greatly improved again. After Wang Feng activated his superpower, his figure almost disappeared in front of everyone's eyes, and a very vague figure could be seen, quickly passing through the kneeling survivors. As Wang Feng moved at high speed, screams rang out in patches, accompanied by blood splattering and countless limbs flying. The entire area with wooden stakes suddenly became a Shura purgatory. When Wang Feng stopped and returned to his previous position, the survivors kneeling on the ground had already lost their legs and arms. Their legs were cut off at the knees, and their arms were cut off at the elbows. Looking at the broken limbs and arms all over the field, and the blood that had already gathered into a river on the ground, the people watching all shuddered. Even the survivors of the Western continent, who had killed many humans or other mutant creatures with their own hands, still had goosebumps when they saw the scene in front of them. After all, there were thousands of people. If Wang Feng had killed them directly, it would have been fine. After all, after hearing about what these people had done before, the survivors of the Western continent also wanted to kill them all. But now it is obvious that Wang Feng thinks that killing them directly is too cheap for these bastards. Especially, Wang Feng did not say what kind of punishment he would give them before, but he led them step by step to the current situation. Although these people are all enhancers or evolvers, they have lost their legs and arms now. they are not awakened, and their broken limbs will never recover. In other words, they will become disabled forever. And in this doomsday, disabled people are basically no different from the poor people. Especially now that they are tied to the stakes by themselves, it must be quite easy for them to get rid of them before, but now, except for watching the blood in their bodies pouring out, they have no way to change their situation at all. Especially their broken legs, the wounds that were cut directly contacted the ground. The pain is definitely not something that ordinary people can bear. But their bodies have been strengthened. Even if they have suffered such serious injuries, they did not faint, they could only grit their teeth and endure it. Looking indifferently at the screaming survivors, Wang Feng said coldly, "Only your blood can wash away your sins for what you did before, and only your life can repay your debts. Your current state will continue until you die. During this period, you can curse, resent, and find excuses for yourself. But I think what you need most is to think about how you will choose to be a human being if there is an afterlife." After saying that, Wang Feng turned around and saluted at a fragment of the military soul monument behind him. "Brothers, this time, I didn't protect you well. Don't worry, the military soul monument will appear again. This time, I will definitely not let anyone have the opportunity to destroy it again. You wait for us down there. In the future, I will definitely go back to find you. At that time, we will fight side by side again." After saying that, Wang Feng stood there quietly, staring blankly at the fragment of the military soul monument for a long time without moving. Under the setting sun, Wang Feng's lonely figure was stretched very long on the ground. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 753. Except for those whose limbs were cut off and who were constantly screaming and wailing, the rest of the people were completely silent. Millions of people, no one spoke. This situation seemed quite strange, but none of the people in the field noticed it. Their eyes were all focused on the lonely figure shrouded in golden light because of the reflection of the setting sun. Dusk, blood, broken limbs. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, the stream formed by the blood was flowing quietly. At this time, Wang Feng had already put away the Xianyuan sword and just stood there straight. But now, his somewhat thin body made everyone around him feel a kind of fear from the heart. Dick, however, the blond man who just spoke to smooth things over, now looked at Wang Feng with a little more fear. This guy had been a little unconvinced by Nicholas and the others before, but because he had just entered the Hope base not long ago, everything had not yet been officially stabilized. Therefore, Dick, however, was just doing some tricks in secret, and he seemed to be very cooperative on the surface. However, in fact, his tricks did not hide from Nicholas and his friends, because Nicholas and his friends did not intend to take over the Hope base for themselves. They thought Wang Feng would come back, and they were just waiting for him here. As for his attitude towards the people in the original Hope base, it was naturally because Nicholas had roughly understood what happened between them and Wang Feng. Especially when they just arrived, they said that they were Wang Feng's friends and wanted to find Wang Feng. The reactions of the survivors of the Hope base at that time made Nicholas understand that these people might not be the people Wang Feng cared about. Therefore, Nicholas and his friends treated the original survivors of the Hope base in this way. It just so happened that they also had to help Wang Feng store food, so they simply used these people as free labor. Even if it was a misunderstanding, anyway, he did not kill all of them, and when he saw Wang Feng, there was still room for redemption. When Dick, however, led everyone to gather all the people just now, he had gathered those people he had secretly won over and secretly discussed a plan. Their plan was very simple, because Nicholas had just made it clear that the Hope base they occupied belonged to Wang Feng. Now that the master is back, the Hope base must naturally be returned to him, and they are just guests at present. Dicka Weber had originally coveted the Hope Base and was ready to win over more people and then seize power, that is, to squeeze out Nicholas and others. Now his preparations have not been completed, and another Wang Feng has appeared. Especially, if this Wang Feng also brought the terrifying 2 Legion warriors mentioned by the survivors of the Far Hope Base, as well as the 2 huge space battleships. Perhaps Dicka Weber would not have any other ideas, and could only stay here honestly and put away his ambitions. But now, Wang Feng's 2 armies and 2 space battleships have been completely lost in the battle with the Space Ghost. He came back with a Devourer and 3 little brats. With such strength, is he worthy of the Hope Base? During this period of time, Dicka Weber has been wandering around the Hope Base for a long time. He is getting more and more excited. Hope Base is definitely a place that is most suitable for human beings to live in the end of the world. There is only one entrance, the Black Dragon Bridge, and the Black Dragon Bridge is a retractable bridge deck. It is a real one-man guard the pass, and 10,000 men cannot open it. The Black Dragon River below is an excellent natural barrier. There are farmlands, water sources, and electricity inside. It is a human base that can be completely self-sufficient. How could such a base be returned to the Oriental boy with only 2 people left? The 3 little killers have never been to the Western continent with Wang Feng, so the survivors of the Western continent have never seen them. Therefore, the survivors of the Western continent, including Nicholas and his friends, did not know the true strength of the 3 little ones. In Dicka Weber's heart, he automatically ignored these 3 children. Yes, the 3 little ones look like children in both body and appearance, and they definitely do not look more than 10 years old. Who would regard 3 children under 10 years old as their enemies? A problem that can be solved by a few pieces of candy is not a problem at all. So Dicka Weber discussed a plan with those guys who had colluded with him for a long time. According to Wang Feng's performance before, those guys who smashed the military soul monument will probably not get a good ending in a while. What Dicka Weber thought at the time was that maybe Wang Feng would let Nicholas kill them all directly. In this case, their chance has come. So many people were killed, and the other Orientals must be afraid in their hearts, worried that they would also be implicated. Especially since their status here was not high to begin with, if they were implicated again, they might even have trouble saving their lives. If after Wang Feng and Nicholas and the others had carried out the killing, their people would jump out directly. Accusing them of their cruelty and bloodiness would definitely leave a better impression on these Orientals. Moreover, among the survivors in the Western continent, they had already won over a small number of people and were ready to follow them. If Dicka Weber's plan was followed, he should jump out now and accuse Wang Feng of being too bloody and inhumane. Then he would take advantage of the situation to incite those Oriental survivors to follow him in denouncing Wang Feng. However, looking at Wang Feng's back, Dicka Weber had hesitated for a long time, but did not dare to stand up and speak. Originally, now was the best time, even better than what they had imagined before. The method used by Wang Feng was undoubtedly more cruel than they had guessed. Although the current situation of those survivors who had their limbs cut off and were tied to wooden stakes was better than that of the guy lying on the ground groaning because his vitality was sucked dry. But if Dicka Weber were to choose between these 2 situations, he would rather die. Because no matter whether it was the survivor on the stake or the survivor lying on the ground, everyone knew that they were dead. But before they died, they still needed to experience more pain for a while, and now they couldn't die even if they wanted to. Not to mention biting their tongues to commit suicide, they were enhancers or evolvers, and they couldn't die even if they bit off their tongues. Although they couldn't regenerate their broken limbs, their bodies also had powerful recovery functions. At least, if they wanted to die by bleeding alone, they would probably have to go through a long period of time. Although it seemed that the situation was more favorable to him now, Dicka Weber didn't dare to rush out. Because the speed Wang Feng had just shown was too terrifying. Dika Weber thought to himself that if Wang Feng used the speed just now to kill him, he would probably die 99% of the time. For the other 1%, he could only hope that Wang Feng's hand would slip at that time. Dika Weber looked around and found that the survivors of the Western continent who had agreed with him to attack together were now pale and looking at Wang Feng with fear. The other survivors were all shocked, but they were afraid. This was only because they had something to hide. They originally planned to go against Wang Feng, but now seeing those guys with their limbs cut off, they couldn't help but start to retreat. No one wanted to be the next survivors who were turned into those stakes by the madman in front of them. Dika Weber sighed secretly. He knew that even if he had the courage to stand up and accuse Wang Feng now, he couldn't guarantee that a few of the people behind him would jump out and join him. At least, after what happened just now, I hope that the original survivors of the base will definitely not stand up to help him. Let's wait and see. At worst, we can go back and discuss it again and talk about it tomorrow. Dika Weber thought to himself, and then made a gesture to his people. After seeing Dika Weber's gesture, Dika Weber clearly felt that the expressions of those people were all relaxed. It seems that Dika Weber's guess was correct. They were indeed stunned by Wang Feng's swift speed and bloody actions just now. At this time, Wang Feng finally turned around slowly. He slowly looked around at the survivors in front of him, and then came to Nicholas. Nicholas. You just said, to return the Hope Base to me. Of course. Nicholas answered loudly. This place was originally yours, and we also came to you for refuge. Now that you are back, of course we still have to hand it over to you. Dika Weber was very angry, but now he still didn't have the courage to express his opinion. Because from Wang Feng's style of doing things, this guy doesn't seem to be a person who likes to listen to other people's opinions. Anyway, they are just two people. It's dusk now, and they have to dismiss those survivors from the east. It is estimated that they don't have time to hand over today. Go back at night, gather everyone together, and have a good discussion. It's not too late to talk about it tomorrow. However, just as Dika Weber was making plans in his mind, Wang Feng suddenly shook his head and said to Nicholas something that shocked everyone in the room. I don't want it. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 754. These three words spoken by Wang Feng shocked the entire audience, and even Deckard Weber was stunned. What? No. Deka Weber felt depressed. Do you want to play like this with you? What I desperately want but can't get, someone offers it to you, but you're pretending not to want it. Deckard Weber only felt like 10,000 grass and mud horses galloping past in his heart. Could the gap between people really be so big? Seeing the astonished expressions of Nicholas and others, Wang Feng smiled gently, but there was a little bitterness in his smile. This Hope Base, I won't stay here. Wang Feng turned around and looked around, seeming to be recalling. This was the place where my brothers and I used to fight and live together. Now, staying here will only make me uncomfortable and remind me of those days in the past all the time. I'll leave this place to you. I will go to other continents with number 7 and the others to find a place suitable for us and live a stable life. Nicholas looked at Wang Feng and suddenly understood Wang Feng's current mood. Nicholas has learned a lot about the specific situation of the Hope Base during this period. At least, he knows Duan Lei, knows Lu Feng, knows Lu Wanting, knows Lu Qiang, and knows the deeds of many core members of the Hope Base. And if, according to what Wang Feng said, their space battleship was destroyed in the battle with the Space Ghost, then, after losing all his relatives in an instant, no wonder Wang Feng suddenly felt a little discouraged. Wind. Nicholas looked at Wang Feng and said, I know how you feel, but you also need to know that your friends, although they have left, will never want to see you like this. The Hope Base was built by you together and condensed your efforts. Whether it is for them or for yourself, you cannot give up. You must take over the Hope Base again and let it exist forever. This is the best memorial to them. This place carries all of your faults, as well as all of your dreams and hopes. Do you remember its name? Hope Base. You must let your friends know that even if they are all gone, their hope will still be passed on. You have to re-erect a monument in the Hope Base to commemorate them, so that everyone living in the Hope Base will know their deeds and why they left this world. In this way, their names will remain in this world forever. You don't want them to just disappear into obscurity, right? Wang Feng looked at Nicholas. He was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Nicholas was actually quite eloquent. If things were really as he said, Duan Lei and the others had already died in the battle with the cosmic ghost, maybe he would really be persuaded by him to continue to stay at the Hope Base. But, of course Wang Feng will not do this now. He said this just to confirm whether there are any candidates worth taking away among the survivors of Zizhu continent. Thank you, Nicholas. Wang Feng patted Nicholas on the shoulder, smiled and said, "What you said may be right, but everyone has different ideas. I've made up my mind, so you don't need to say more. I leave the Hope Base to you. Manage it well and don't let it decline. As for our names." Wang Feng turned around and looked at the survivors of the Hope Base, and suddenly smiled disdainfully. "Humph. It's just them, do you think they remember it?" After saying that, Wang Feng waved to number 7 and walked towards the small fighter plane, intending to leave. "Wait. Wind." Nicholas quickly took a few steps forward and stopped in front of Wang Feng. "Let's do this. I won't force you to make a decision now, but it's almost dark now. Although your plane is very fast, you are not in a hurry on this day. Have a rest here today, think about it carefully, and then leave tomorrow. If you still decide to leave tomorrow, I will never stop you." "That's right, Feng. We'll leave tomorrow. We haven't seen each other for a long time." Liana also came forward and took Wang Feng's arm and said, "Feng, you don't dare to stay here all night, do you?" Oscar simply used a trick to provoke the general. Wang Feng looked back at number 7, but number 7 didn't know what Wang Feng wanted to do next. Human thinking is too complicated. As the devourer, number 7 said that cooperating with Wang Feng to perform was very stressful for him. So, number 7 quickly looked around, pretending that there were mosquitoes around him, not looking at Wang Feng at all. "Okay. Then let's leave tomorrow." Wang Feng hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Seeing Wang Feng agree, Nicholas and the others breathed a sigh of relief. But there was a cold light in Dickel Weber's eyes. Wang Feng from the front insisted on leaving. He seemed to have thought of something. That night, Nicholas specially emptied the top floor of the clubhouse, which was the floor where Li Yingning lived. Nicholas left this layer exclusively to Wang Feng and the others. Although the dinner was not sumptuous, it could be considered quite luxurious in this apocalyptic world. However, since Nicholas and the others are Westerners, their eating habits are also very different from Wang Feng and the others. Vegetables are basically eaten raw. Originally, before the end of the world, they should have been eaten with a sauce, which was still edible. But now is the end of the world, where would anyone specialize in making that kind of sauce? But fortunately, the bread they bake is pretty good, especially since they actually make wine. In this apocalyptic world where food is scarce, brewing wine is definitely a prodigal act. But Wang Feng didn't know that these wines were made by Nicholas and others just because they happened to find some grape seeds, so they opened up a special area, planted them themselves, and harvested them. There wasn't much in total. If it weren't for Wang Feng, Nicholas wouldn't have been able to take it out. After having enough wine and food, Wang Feng got up and left, going directly to the top floor to prepare for a rest. Nicholas and the others knew that Wang Feng was in a bad mood, so no one bothered them. Of course, Number 7 also followed Wang Feng, but he killed the 3 children. Since arriving at the Hope Base, he disappeared and did not even show up at the dinner. Nicholas once asked Wang Feng the whereabouts of these 3 children who killed Wang Feng and said directly, "They are timid and afraid of meeting people. They have already gone to rest, so don't pay attention to them." Then he sent Nicholas away directly. Nicholas thought that Xiaomi San Xiao was the child of a core member of the Hope Base who had a lucky escape and lost a relative, so he didn't ask any more questions. After all, Xiaomi San Xiao rarely appears in front of everyone, and rarely takes action. Therefore, apart from the soldiers and core members of the 2 legions, not many people know about them. Watching Wang Feng and Number 7 leave, Nicholas immediately summoned the management among the survivors of Zizhu continent and started a meeting. Even Nicholas himself didn't know that it was this meeting that changed the fate of many of them. "Everyone, what do you think?" After looking around, Nicholas took the lead and asked, "What do you think? If someone wants to leave, just let him go. It's not like we occupy the space and won't give it to him." Deckard Weber was the first to speak. As Deckard Weber took the lead, many guys who had already had underground agreements with Deckard Weber also spoke out in support. "That's right. We have done our best to be benevolent and righteous. Although he has helped us, we are not ungrateful." "That's right. Even if he makes us become awakened ones, we won't have to sell our lives to him, right? It's just an Oriental, let's go. It just so happens that I don't like being ridden by an Oriental." Nicholas looked at these people with a sneer, and with a wave of his hand, he stopped Oscar and Liana who were about to explode. "Stop talking. Feng is right. Everyone has their own ideas. We don't have to force others to be the same as us. We are only responsible for taking care of ourselves," Nicholas said softly. After those people yelled for a while, they found that no one refuted them or responded to them. They gradually felt bored, so they gradually closed their mouths. "Okay. This is a view. Let the wind go away and wipe out what he has done in the past." When these people finally calmed down, Nicholas said, "Does anyone else have a different opinion?" As soon as Nicholas finished speaking, a person asked, "Nicholas, what are you going to do?" "I." Nicholas smiled. "I want to leave with him." "Ah." Nicholas' words immediately caused an explosion in the club. "You're leaving too? What about Hope Base?" A strong man asked loudly. "The Hope Base is not mine in the first place. What should I do? Does it have anything to do with me?" Nicholas frowned and said, "Besides, will you all leave with me?" "This." The big man suddenly stopped talking and retreated sarcastically. "Nicholas. I'll go with you." Another bald man stood up and came behind Nicholas. "I will never forget Feng's kindness to me, and I will join in." "Don't look at us, we must be following Nicholas." Seeing the bald head looking at her, Osiska laughed. "Nicholas, I think there is another better way." At this time, a voice sounded. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 755. Everyone looked up and saw a red-faced man in his 50s, looking at Nicholas. "What's a better way?" Nicholas was stunned. "Feng is kind to us. So, I think we should help him take care of this Hope Base when he is lost. I think he will get back on his feet." "So what you mean is, let Feng leave alone, and we will continue to stay at the Hope Base. After he cheers up, we will return the Hope Base to him." Nicholas didn't wait for the man to finish speaking, then interrupted him directly and continued on himself. "Yes. Isn't this great?" the red-faced man said excitedly. "As you said, this Hope Base was built by Feng and his friends who worked together, and it has developed so well. Even if it's for his dead friend, we should help Feng and continue to maintain the Hope Base. Even if he doesn't have the heart to manage in the future, we can still manage it for him. At least, we can provide him with a safe environment. Feng has helped us so much. It's right for us to help him guard a base, don't you think? After this red-faced man laid out a lot of truth, he actually got the support of most people. They all thought this method was good. Since Wang Feng was already so powerful, there was no need for them to protect him, so they might as well help Wang Feng build a hope base. In this way, we can repay the favor without embarrassing ourselves, and we have an honest reason, so everyone is simply happy. Ha 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 ha. Just when a group of people were praising the red-faced man, Nicholas suddenly burst into laughter. Everyone stopped talking and looked at Nicholas inexplicably. They didn't quite understand. Why was Nicholas laughing suddenly? Could it be that the red-faced man was right? Thinking about it carefully, there seems to be nothing wrong. Whether from a moral point of view or from a self-interest point of view, the red-faced man's statement is indeed perfect. Gyukas. I always thought you were a bloody man, but I never thought that your heart is even dirtier than Deckard Weber's. After laughing for a while, Nicholas stopped laughing, then pointed at the red-faced man and cursed loudly. Although Deckard Webb is insidious, at least he is not as hypocritical as you. If he wants to get the hope base, he can just tell Feng to leave. And you? You actually came up with a high-sounding reason that can not only gain the hope base, but also make others think that you are repaying a favor. Ha 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 ha. What a trick. Why didn't I see before that you were so scheming? What you are doing, in Eastern terms, is like being a bitch and building a memorial arch. After hearing what Nicholas said, the red-faced man Gyukas suddenly became angry, but fortunately, he was originally red-faced, so he couldn't see any change. Nicholas, what do you mean? It's best to explain it to me clearly. Don't think that I am afraid of you. Humph. What do you mean? Don't you mean that? Nicholas sneered. Do you think what Feng needs now is what you said just now? I believe he will get back on his feet. There are too many friends like you in this world. Without any actual actions, just talking about it and cutting it off, what the hell does it matter? It doesn't matter if you don't want to help him, but you just took over someone's home, and you even claim to be taking care of him. How can you die if you save your humming face? No wonder your face is as red as a monkey's butt. It seems that you also know that your face is not yours. Remember, as a man, if you dare to do something, don't be afraid of what others will say, let alone make excuses or reasons for what you do. That way, you will only make me look down on you even more. Grass. When Gyukas was told what was on his mind, he simply tore his face apart and roared at Nicholas. Nicholas, so what if I just want to make excuses? Do I really need you to look down on me? Besides, am I wrong? He didn't want the hope base in the first place, and I didn't snatch it from him. Do you care? You want to go with him, okay. You are loyal and awesome. When I see you, when you are desperate, do you have the nerve to return to this hope base? Humph. Whether you come back or not, you don't have to worry about it. It depends on Feng's wishes. This is his home. He can come back if he wants. What? You don't accept it? How about, let's have a duel? Nicholas took a step forward, looked at Gyukas and challenged. Snort. Gyukas's expression was stagnant, and then he stopped talking. Although they were all awakened, Nicholas had rich fighting experience, and he had a life-threatening and crazy energy when fighting. If a fight really breaks out, Gyukas is indeed no match for Nicholas, so of course he doesn't dare to continue arguing with Nicholas. Bah! Coward! Seeing Gyukas shrinking his head, Nicholas spat disdainfully, and then ignored Gyukas. Okay. It's probably clear now, no one has any other opinions, right? Nicholas looked around again and asked. Apart from that bitch who wanted to build a memorial archway, we actually have two choices now, One is to leave with Feng, and the other is to stay and occupy his base. I won't force anyone. As long as you feel that everything you do is worthy of your own heart, and you can sleep peacefully here every day, I will not interfere with anyone's choice. As long as you don't do this kind of thing under the banner of friends, you don't deserve it. Okay. I choose to leave with Feng. If you want to stay, stand opposite me, and if you want to leave together, stand behind me. Nicholas finally said loudly. The people in the club looked at each other, and then began to move their bodies, silently making their own choices. Haha. Not bad, it seems to be more than I thought. Nicholas looked back at the people behind him and laughed. Standing behind Nicholas was about a quarter of the total number of people in the club hall. This number was indeed beyond Nicholas's imagination. This is the end of the world, and humanity has been gradually worn out by the dark and cruel life. There are still so many people who choose to stand behind him, which makes Nicholas full of confidence in his future life. Everyone knows that leaving the East continent and going to another continent is definitely more dangerous than staying in the Hope base, a mature human base. But there are still so many people who choose to be on his side, which shows that the people of the West continent have not all sunk in this end of the world. Seeing that everyone has made their own choices, Nicholas no longer pays attention to the guys on the opposite side, and turns to the people behind him and says, "Thank you everyone. I know we have chosen a more difficult road, but at least this is a road for people to walk. No matter what the future results are, I, Nicholas, can only guarantee one thing: our choice today is absolutely correct." Think about the scene outside before. The scene we just saw actually happened once in the Hope base. Those guys who were treated as slaves by us and lived in shame made the wrong choice. They are still alive, but do they live like human beings? Having lost their bottom line and humanity, are such people worthy of being called human beings? I don't know what our future will be like, but even if we die, at least we can have no regrets. Now, everyone go out and tell others about our decision just now, so that others can make a choice. We welcome those who are willing to follow us, and we won't force those who are unwilling. You have to walk your own way, and there is no need to force others to follow you on the same road. Understood? The people in front of Nicholas agreed in unison, and then walked out together. Although Nicholas was talking to them just now, those who chose to stay also had hot faces, as if they were slapped in the face in public. But none of them had the courage to stand up and refute Nicholas' words, because he was right. After seeing everyone leave, Nicholas didn't even turn his head, as if the people behind him were not worth his second glance, and walked straight out. Seeing them all leave, a sinister look flashed across Dick Weber's face. He looked at the people around him and asked, "Everyone, does anyone want to say anything?" "What? You've been scolded like a dog, and it was scolded in person. You don't even dare to talk back, what else can you say?" A survivor said angrily, and then walked out. "Daberi. Wait a minute." Daberi stopped him quickly. "I have something to discuss with everyone." Some of the others originally wanted to leave with Daberi. Just as Daberi said, who would have the nerve to stay after being scolded in person? "What's the matter? Hurry up and say it." "I'm not in the mood to play with you now," Daberi said impatiently. "I found a problem," Dick Weber said mysteriously. "Do you know why Wang Feng insisted on leaving?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 756. It's none of my business if he insists on leaving. Hearing Dick Weber's words, Daberi became even more angry. The current situation only occurred because Wang Feng insisted on leaving. Otherwise, If Wang Feng is willing to accept Nicholas's suggestion and continue to stay at the Hope Base, Daberi will not have much resistance to obeying Wang Feng's management. At least when Wang Feng was in Zizhu continent, their situation was getting better and better under Wang Feng's leadership. But if you have to leave, forget it. At least, I hope that the base now needs food, people, and is very safe. Want to leave here and go to other continents to open new bases? Isn't that a disease? Wang Feng has indeed helped him a lot, but it's okay to drink soup and eat meat with him. What if he fights with him? Whoever wants to go will go. Daberi. If you knew the reason, you might be interested. Deca Weber smiled softly, and then looked at the people around him. Everyone, wait a moment. Then, Deca Weber winked at two people in the crowd. The two people understood and hurried to the door of the club to act as sentries. Deca Web. What bad idea are you going to come up with again? Looking at the mysterious Deca Weber, the red-faced man Gyukas frowned and asked. He had just been exposed by Nicholas to his face, and now he was depressed. Naturally, he had no good temper. Everyone. What I am going to say next is a decision I made, but once I say it, you must promise me one thing. Deca Weber looked at everyone and said. After listening to what I say, you can choose to work with me. You will have good food and drink in the future, and there will be no future troubles. There will definitely be no problem. But if you don't want to join us, we won't force you. However, first, the various benefits are definitely gone. As for the second one, I need you to keep your mouth shut and not go to high density. Therefore, if you don't want to join, I will restrict your movements for one night. Don't worry, you will be free at noon tomorrow at the latest. By then, you can go or stay, it's up to you. If you can agree to my conditions, then stay and listen to me. If you can't accept it, you can leave now and go back to rest. But just wait until tomorrow and don't regret it. After hearing what Deckard Weber said, everyone present couldn't help but talk about it. Everyone was curious, and the prospects depicted by Deckard Weber seemed to be good. Especially after listening to his secrets, you can also choose not to follow him. The price is just one night of freedom. This is not difficult for them. Survivors in the apocalypse can sleep casually, even in the open air. Where can they not sleep? Anyway, we will be free by tomorrow morning at the latest. Just listen to it. Therefore, after the discussion, no one present chose to leave. Okay. Since everyone wants to hear it, I will tell everyone. However, the ugly words are ahead. If anyone wants to leave after listening to it for a while, don't want to join, then don't blame me for turning your back on them. Deckard Weber said seriously. Okay. Deckard Weber. Why do you talk so much nonsense? Hurry up and say it. Gyukas began to urge. Those of us who are staying here now want to stay in this Hope Base, right? Deckard Weber stopped talking nonsense and went directly to the topic. This is because all of us know that this should be the most ideal place to survive in this world. That Wang Feng is not a fool. Of course he knows the benefits of staying here, but why does he want to leave? You also heard what Nicholas said to him. Even if he wants to leave, after hearing those words, he should be tempted or at least consider it, right? But he refused directly. It was only later that I understood that it wasn't that he didn't want to stay, but that he didn't dare to stay. Deca Weber looked at everyone and continued. Think about it, there are only two of them now, and there are three burdens with them. If they stay here, they must feel that they are not safe. They are Easterners, and we are Westerners. They Easterners have a saying, those who are not of my race will have their hearts destroyed. That's why I think he doesn't dare to stay. Even if he has that fighter plane, can he always live on top of that fighter plane? Have you noticed that even when Nicholas asked him to stay for one night, he hesitated for a long time? Later, with Liana and Oscar's efforts to stay, he reluctantly agreed. Especially, the top floor where he lives has been completely emptied. Isn't it because he is afraid that we will kill him at night? No way. When he cut off those people's arms, he was quite fast. A survivor from Zizu continent interjected at this time. Based on his speed, we are definitely no match for him. No matter how many people there are, it will be difficult to kill him. This survivor's words were agreed by most people. Wang Feng's speed was indeed not something they could match. TCH. Fortunately, you are still an awakened person. Think about your powers. Deckard Weber pouted. But, can your superpower last forever? Moreover, the more powerful the ability, the greater the consumption. In other words, the shorter the duration. I estimate that Wang Feng's superpower won't last even 20 seconds. In 20 seconds, he can't even escape from this base. Even if we stand there to kill him, how many people can he kill? But why should we kill him? Gyukas asked. Alas. You are really clueless. You don't want to think about where we are now? Hope Base. Whose Hope Base belongs to him? It belongs to Wang Feng. Deca Weber shook his head and sighed. If it were you, would you be able to swallow this breath? He doesn't dare to fight with us now, but he has a fighter plane. If we put him back and he drives that fighter plane around our place every day, who can bear it? Nicholas has a good relationship with him. He shouldn't do this, right? Daberi asked. Well, if Nicholas is here, maybe he will be embarrassed, but Nicholas will leave with him tomorrow. Deca Weber said. Who among you thinks that you have a good relationship with Wang Feng and can prevent him from coming to make trouble in our place? You can raise your hand to indicate it. Everyone looked at each other, obviously having been persuaded by Deca Web, because what he said seemed to make some sense. Then what do we do? Gyukas asked. Humph. Now that we are at odds with Nicholas and the others, what else can we do? Either you live or die, or I die. Deckard Weber said with a sinister expression. Hi. Hearing Deckard Weber's words, everyone took a breath of cold air. Only now did they understand why Deckard Weber said just now that once they heard his plan, even if they disagreed, they would stay here and not go out until tomorrow. It turns out that this guy actually wants to kill Nicholas and the others. But, just dealing with Wang Feng number 7, is already a bit difficult. Maybe a lot of people will die. Gyukas said. If we add Nicholas and the others, our losses will be huge. Besides, Nicholas and the others are still outside pulling people, and we don't know how many people will be pulled over by them and leave with Wang Feng. Don't worry about that. Deca Weber waved his hand and said. First of all, of those guys outside, I estimate that it would be a miracle if even 1/10 of them is willing to go with them. Anyone with a brain can think of how unwise it is to leave the Hope Base or even the Dongzhou continent. Besides, don't we still have a lot of cannon fodder to use? Cannon fodder? Gyukas was stunned for a moment, then immediately reacted. You mean, those Orientals? Certainly. Deca Weber nodded and said. Nicholas and the others can pull people, can't we? In a moment. After we make a decision, we will split up and go negotiate with those Easterners. Tell them that as long as they help us kill Wang Feng and Nicholas tomorrow, we will only collect 20% of the crops they grow from now on as tax. I remember, this seems to be the earliest tax rate in Hope Base. 20%? Isn't that too little? Everyone obviously felt that they were at a disadvantage, but they did not expect that even the 20% was for nothing. In the past, we wanted bases to collect taxes because they wanted to build and protect them. But now they are just taking it ready-made without any effort at all. TCH. I just said I promised them, but I didn't say it would come true. Deca Weber said disdainfully. Besides, the tax is 20%, but what about the land? What about the wages of our people who look after them? If you want to make excuses, don't you have this? Even if we don't make any excuses and just plainly refuse to admit our fault, at that time, the Hope Base is already under our control. What can they do? Everyone suddenly realized that it seemed that Deckard Weber had already thought about what to do. Okay. I promise you. I'll do it with you. Gyukas was the first to nod. I'll join in too. And me. Afterwards, everyone present actually expressed their willingness to follow Deckard Weber into a fight. After reaching an agreement, Deca Weber allocated the personnel in detail, and decided to launch the attack before dawn. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 757. In the early morning of the next day, before dawn, the Green Water Garden was already crowded with people. It has to be said that when people's hearts are filled with greed and desire, their ability to act will become quite terrifying. This time was about 5 hours after Nicholas and the others left last night. But in just these 5 hours, Deca Weber not only successfully convinced a large part of the survivors of Zizhu continent. Moreover, almost all the survivors who were originally left behind in the Hope Base were also incited. Even among the survivors who originally stayed at the Hope Base, they were incited by Deckard Weber to prepare to attack Wang Feng, Nicholas, and the others. In terms of number ratio, they exceeded the survivors of the Zizhu continent. Because Nicholas also asked people to go over to find those ordinary survivors of Zizhu continent yesterday to explain the situation and see if any of them wanted to leave with them. After persuading almost everyone, a small number of survivors in Zizhu continent still remember Wang Feng's help to them in their hearts. So I decided to leave with Wang Feng and Nicholas. Although there were not many of them, they numbered nearly 100,000. Of course, Deca Weber and the others did not dare to win over these people, for fear of leaking the news. Fortunately, those survivors who agreed to leave with Nicholas were gathered together by Nicholas and the others and did not continue to be scattered in the Hope Base. In this way, it gave a green light to Deckard Weber's plan. However, although the remaining survivors of Zizhu continent did not agree to leave with Nicholas, many of them did not choose to help Deckard Weber. The thoughts of these people are somewhat similar to Lu Feng at the beginning of the apocalypse. I just want myself to survive. You can make trouble as much as you like, and I won't interfere. No matter who is right or wrong, what does it have to do with me? You go and fight yourselves, as long as it doesn't affect me. Deckard Weber has no way to deal with such survivors, but at least they are neutral, but it does not have much impact on their own actions. Therefore, in the end, about 1/5 of the survivors in Zizhu continent stood on Nicholas's side and prepared to leave together. Another 1/5 of the people chose to stand by and watch, and only 3/5 of the survivors joined Deckard Weber's side, preparing to launch a bloody massacre against Wang Feng and Nicholas. As for the survivors on this side of the Hope Base, Deca Weber felt unusually happy. Because nearly 90% of the survivors of Dongzhou continent immediately agreed to the terms they offered. This should also be because, after seeing Wang Feng's attitude towards them today, they probably knew that Wang Feng would not care about their life or death. What's more, if Deckard Weber's plan succeeds, Wang Feng and Nicholas will both die. If Wang Feng could be killed, it would be a relief for them. Because Wang Feng and Duan Lei didn't take them with them when they left. They have always held a grudge against Wang Feng and Duan Lei, the core members of the Hope Base. Naturally, they will not look for faults in themselves. No matter what, as long as they encounter something unsatisfactory, they can always blame all the reasons on others. Therefore, they were even happy when they learned that the soldiers and core members of the Hope Base had been annihilated in the battle with the Cosmic Ghost. Deserve it? Deserve it? I'm asking you to act cool. I'm telling you not to take me with you. Do you think the space battleship is safe? Are you a fool now? They were all gloating in their hearts, and now only Wang was left among the former leaders of the Hope Base. Deckard Weber said that he would organize all the survivors of the Hope Base to kill Wang Feng and Nicholas, who were preparing to betray the Hope Base to avoid future troubles. Such suggestions are inherently attractive to them. What's more, Deca Weber also promised that in the future, the Hope Base will only take 20% of the harvest as taxes, and the rest will belong to themselves. This is equivalent to letting them return to their previous Hope Base, and of course they agreed. As for the remaining 10%, it's not that they don't want to join, but they don't dare. After all, they have been staying at the Hope Base, and Wang Feng's reputation has long been deeply engraved in their hearts. Even though Wang Feng's side is now at an absolute disadvantage, they still dare not stand on the opposite side of Wang Feng. Of course, they didn't want to take the initiative to notify Wang Feng, because they knew that Deca Weber and his people would definitely pay attention to them secretly, risking their lives to remind Wang Feng that such a thing is not worth it to them. And among these people, there are also smart people. They can see at a glance that Deca Web and the others are just using them as cannon fodder. There is no benefit to be gained and the risk is still so high. Only a fool would do such a thing. So, the 1/10 of the East Continent survivors chose to remain neutral, just like the 1/3 of the West Continent survivors. In fact, among the other East Continent survivors who decided to follow Deca Weber, there were also people who understood that they were just being used as cannon fodder. However, after all, there were more than 20 million of them. Even if they were cannon fodder, they would not necessarily be so unlucky to die, right? This fluke mentality made those who saw some problems choose to remain silent. They didn't want to remind other people who didn't react, so that they would rush to the front and act as the vanguard. And they themselves could naturally hide behind secretly, just waving flags and shouting, working but not working hard. I get the credit, and you take the danger. This is the most shrewd way of dealing with the world. At this time, Wang Feng had already known the actions of these people, including Nicholas's decision and Deca Weber's conspiracy. The three little ones are not freeloaders. When Deca Weber and the survivors of the Western continent were designating a detailed plan, Wang Mi was among them. Therefore, the details of their discussion were directly transmitted to Wang Feng's ears through the microcommunicator held by Wang Mi. Listening to their plans full of loopholes, Wang Feng couldn't help shaking his head. He actually wanted to speak out and point out the loopholes in their plans. However, Wang Feng was worried that his voice would suddenly sound among them and might scare them, so he held back. It is said that scaring people will scare them to death. Wang Feng certainly would not do such an immoral thing. However, Nicholas and his decision made Wang Feng quite relieved. This guy did not waste the opportunity given to them by Wang Feng in vain, but firmly grasped it. It can be imagined that there must be a place for Nicholas and the people he recruited in the Yanhuang space battleship. However, how many seats they can have in the end depends on how the other survivors of the Western continent choose. After learning that Deca Weber was almost ready, and that their people had surrounded the clubhouse of Bishui Garden and several residential buildings around the clubhouse, Wang Feng stood up, then came to the window, took off, and flew directly to a residential building next to it under the cover of night. The residential buildings surrounded by Deca Weber were where the survivors of the Western continent who were pulled over by Nicholas to leave with them temporarily gathered. Because they were all awakened, and they were about to leave, they were not ready to sleep, but discussed how to follow Wang Feng in the future and open up new homes in other continents. As for the clubhouse where Wang Feng was, there were only a few people left by Deca Weber to monitor Wang Feng. However, after Wang Feng returned here, he never showed his flying skill, so the people arranged by Deca Weber only knew to stare at the floor where Wang Feng was, to see if he came down. Seeing Wang Feng appear, Nicholas and others who were discussing were stunned. Wang Feng made a gesture to silence them, then came to them and told them what Deca Weber was about to do. This son of a bitch. I'm going to tear him apart right now. After hearing what Wang Feng said, Nicholas and others were immediately furious and were about to go out and kill Deca Weber. Don't worry. Nicholas. Wang Feng stopped them, then smiled gently. Everyone, go gather all our people first, and gather at the square in front of the clubhouse. When the time comes, I'll treat you to a good show. Square? Where is that tree? Nicholas was stunned, then asked. That's right. Don't worry. That tree and those mutant bees will not hurt you this time. Okay. No problem. After hearing what Wang Feng said, Nicholas said no more and turned to the survivors of the Western continent. Did you hear that? Go and call everyone over immediately and gather at the square. By the way, Nicholas, when you go to call people, tell them about the current situation. If anyone wants to quit temporarily, don't force them. Wang Feng said leisurely, this, even if it is his last test for the survivors of the Western continent. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 758. Since all the survivors on Nicholas' side were concentrated in the residential buildings around the clubhouse, so, they didn't waste much time and gathered all the people in the square with willow trees. It might be because Wang Feng's final test was a bit severe, so some people couldn't stand it and finally chose to leave. Therefore, there were only about 100,000 survivors from the Western continent who gathered on Wang Feng's side. However, this number can satisfy Wang Feng, because it proves that he can save another 100,000 people. Wang Feng will never be a person like Fuxi or Xian Yuan, who can unconditionally save all human beings in order to achieve their goals. But Wang Feng will not, although he now has the ability to take away all the tens of millions of people here, at least he can take them to the mother planet to make them free from the threat of cosmic ghosts. But Wang Feng never intended to do so, he only wanted to save those who are worth saving. As for those guys who are not worth saving, whether they die or not, or how they die, what does it have to do with Wang Feng? Wang Feng is not a saint, nor a savior, he is just a soldier. He will not repay kindness with grievances, but he cannot repay grievances with kindness now. These 100,000 people are all standing in the square around the willow tree. Although 100,000 people are not many in proportion, 100,000 people standing together are also a large group of people. If it weren't for the square before the club, which had been expanded many times by Duan Lei and his team, it is very likely that they would not even be able to stand. Fortunately, this Bishui Garden community was a pilot community where Ganlin County was going to relocate all the residents of the county. Otherwise, in an ordinary community, I am afraid that the entire community would not be able to accommodate so many people. Looking at these people, Wang Feng smiled and then said, "Everyone, thank you for believing in me and being willing to stand by my side in this situation. Since you have chosen to stand by my side, then I will never let you down. In a moment, no matter what happens, just remember that there is only one thing you need to do, watch the show. Everyone, from now on, don't move your position. Don't worry, I promise that when things here are over, we will still have as many people as we have here now." Wang Feng did not use a microphone, but these 100,000 people heard Wang Feng's words clearly. This move alone greatly increased the confidence of the survivors in Wang Feng. Nicholas' eyes were shining. In his opinion, there seemed to be nothing that Wang Feng could not do. When Wang Feng and his men gathered their people, although Dika Weber knew about their actions, he did not stop them. He just asked all the people on their side to stay put. Because this is exactly what he wanted. Although he said before that Wang Feng was not reliable and his ability would not last long. But deep down, Dika Weber was still quite afraid of Wang Feng. The people on their side were gathered together in a hurry. It has been less than 5 hours since the alliance. In their current situation, if there is no problem, they will continue, but once there is a crisis, they will probably fall apart immediately. There is no doubt that in Dika Weber's mind, Wang Feng is such a crisis point. If Wang Feng is really forced into a corner, he will activate his terrible ability and start killing people wantonly, then the area around Wang Feng will probably become a sea of blood and corpses. At that time, Dicka Weber is almost certain that the mob he has gathered will definitely scatter in an instant. Especially those survivors from the East Continent who were originally members of the Hope Base. They were all swept away by the Hope Base. If they were all brave warriors who were ready to die, they should have been destroyed in space along with the two warships. So Dicka Weber didn't have much hope for them. And the current situation was exactly what Dicka Weber wanted. Although the residential buildings surrounded by them were the closest to the club, they were actually a little far away from the club. If Dicka Weber directly surrounded the club and only targeted Wang Feng, separating him from Nicholas and the others, it would not be impossible. However, in that case, Dicka Weber felt that Wang Feng would try his best in his eagerness to break through, so the situation he was worried about might happen. So Dicka Weber thought of using Nicholas and others who were preparing to leave with Wang Feng to contain Wang Feng. No matter how strong Wang Feng was, it was impossible for him to protect all the people on their side surrounded by tens of millions of people, right? Dicka Weber has issued an order that once the battle begins, no one should take the initiative to attack Wang Feng, but should focus on the other people on their side. This is a difficult problem that Dicka Weber left for Wang Feng. It depends on whether Wang Feng wants to take care of those people. Take care of them. He will definitely be exhausted and his physical strength will be exhausted soon. What if you don't care? That would be even better. Doing so would definitely chill the people on their side and severely damage their morale. By then, if they exaggerate, they will probably be able to collapse the alliance there. Although the alliance on their side has just been formed, is it the same on the other side? The foundations of both sides are not solid, so they will have to use strategies. Deckard Weber thought proudly. Therefore, it was not until Nicholas gathered all the survivors who were willing to follow Wang Feng and him that Deckard Weber and his men appeared instantly and surrounded them. Humph! Nicholas! You traitor! Deckard Weber, who was hiding among the crowd, pointed at Nicholas and snorted coldly. But before he finished speaking, he was directly interrupted by Nicholas. I rebel against your insensitivity. I just praised you for doing things shamelessly, but you didn't make excuses or give some high-sounding reasons. In a humming blink of an eye, you've become just like that bitch who wanted to build a memorial arch. Don't you just want a base of hope, but you're afraid that we'll come back for revenge, so you want to avoid future troubles. Don't mess with those useless things. If you want to beat them, come right away. Nicholas pointed at Dicka Weber and cursed loudly, which actually made Dicka Weber stay in place. He didn't know how to answer for a while. If you want to die, I will help you. Deckard Weber, who took a while to understand, couldn't help but became furious. He shouted sternly. Everyone is ready. Following Deckard Weber's order, the survivors who surrounded Wang Feng and the others showed their firearms one after another and pointed their guns at Wang Feng and the others. Nicholas' expression changed drastically. Because the location of Hope Base was quite safe, after they arrived at Hope Base and controlled the situation, they sealed up all the weapons. After all, I don't know if there will be any drastic changes in the future, so these firearms still have to be retained. And always being exposed to the outside is quite detrimental to the maintenance of firearms, so they will seal up most of the firearms. Unexpectedly, in order to deal with them, Nicholas secretly took out these firearms and prepared to use them to attack himself. If it's a close combat, although there are tens of millions of people on the opposite side and they only have 100,000 people, but with Wang Feng here and they are still under the willow tree, Nicholas thinks they can still hold on for a while. As long as they survive their first few waves of attacks, the loss of personnel will make the survivors on the opposite side start to panic. At that time, their chance will come. But now, the other side doesn't have to rush up at all and just shoot with guns. Their side will suffer heavy losses. Even those who are awakened and can regenerate limbs still have great concerns about firearms. Once hit fatally, they will also fall. Even Nicholas thought so, not to mention the other people behind him. They looked at the people surrounding them with vigilant eyes, ready to break out after hearing the order. Yes, in this situation, breaking out is the only option. Although it will cause heavy losses, the entire army should not be annihilated. Seeing their reactions, Deckard Weber couldn't help laughing proudly, secretly thinking that he was wise in taking out all these firearms and equipping them to the survivors of the East Continent in the Hope Base. Listen, if you want to live, you can surrender immediately and come to our side. We won't kill you. Otherwise, no matter how powerful you are, can you still block bullets? And you? Deckard Weber pointed at Wang Feng and said. You can leave. After all, you have fought side by side with us in Zizhu continent. I still miss the old friendship. However, you can only leave alone and leave all the equipment and so on. Then, Deca Weber looked back at the small fighter plane parked outside the Blue Water Garden, with a greedy look in his eyes. Of course, including this plane. Moreover, you will teach me how to fly it, and then you can leave safely. Deckard Webb's wishful thinking struck loud and clear. In fact, it really doesn't matter to him whether Wang Feng kills him or not. No matter how powerful he is just one person. The only thing Deckard Weber was afraid of was this fighter plane. If he kept the fighter plane and could learn to fly it, there would be nothing wrong with letting Wang Feng go. To him, Wang Feng, who has lost his fighter plane, is like a toothless tiger. There is no need to be afraid of him. However, his words seemed to have no effect on the people on Wang Feng's side. Among the 100,000 people, not even one chose to surrender. There may be fear of death in their eyes, but they did not succumb to this fear. Because the choice has been made. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 759. They knew they were at a disadvantage, and they also knew that the only way to survive was to break through, and they would probably die on the way to break through. However, as Nicholas said, even if they died, at least they died as humans on the way to charge. Feng. We will break through together in a while, we will cover you, and then you leave quickly and find a chance to help us get revenge. While Deca Weber was waiting for them to make a choice, Nicholas approached Wang Feng and said. Ha ha ha. After hearing Nicholas' words, Wang Feng suddenly laughed. Nicholas, and brothers, have you forgotten what I just said to you? You just need to watch the show. Nicholas almost cried, watching the show? Watching machine guns kill people? This show is quite interesting, but the key is that it can't be me standing in front of the muzzle. Although Nicholas also admired the gadfly, he never thought that one day he would stand in front of the muzzle and laugh. Don't worry, Nicholas. I, Wang Feng, don't have the habit of letting my brothers charge forward and running away alone. Wang Feng patted Nicholas on the shoulder and smiled. You really have the nerve to say that. Hearing Wang Feng's words, Deca Weber couldn't help but sarcastically said. I don't know which shameless thing it was that left the two warships and all the people around him and fled back alone in a mess. You still swear that you won't run away? Isn't this just pretending to be a whore? Oh. Wang Feng looked at Deca Weber. Really? Who told you, they are all dead? If it was me, then I'm sorry, maybe I've been too busy recently and my memory is a little messy. But fortunately, I can prove it right away. This is just a beautiful misunderstanding, although, you may not feel how beautiful this misunderstanding is. Wang Feng looked up at the sky. Listening to Wang Feng's words, and seeing his posture, Deca Weber suddenly felt a bad feeling in his heart, and he quickly looked up. But in the dark sky, nothing can be seen. Just when Dika Weber made up his mind and decided to ignore Wang Feng's pretense and directly ordered to shoot, he suddenly heard a cry of surprise from the people around him. Dika Weber hurriedly lowered his head and looked towards Wang Feng, and found that Wang Feng's body suddenly rose up. That's right, Wang Feng actually flew up, and his hair fluttered in the air without wind. In the night sky, Wang Feng at this time was like a god, majestic, arrogant and invincible. Dika Weber looked at Wang Feng, then turned around and looked at the people around him, and suddenly shouted frantically. Shoot him down! Shoot! Shoot them all! Dika Weber knew that if this continued, the survivors on his side would all be suppressed by Wang Feng alone. At that time, no matter how many people there were, it would be useless. The best way was to shoot Wang Feng to death now. Especially since Wang Feng was in mid-air, he was a perfect target. What was wrong with flying? Was it great? In Dika Weber's eyes, although Wang Feng's move was very cool, it was a little stupid. He dared to fly so high even though they were holding guns. Wasn't he courting death? However, Dika Weber's shouting didn't have much effect. Because they were using the East Continent survivors in the Hope base as cannon fodder, almost all the people standing in front with guns were East Continent survivors. Even the original survivors in the Hope base, in the hearts of these guys, Wang Feng has always been a terrifying existence. If they weren't so numerous, they wouldn't dare to trouble Wang Feng. Now seeing Wang Feng's image as if he was a god descending to the world, the fear of Wang Feng in their hearts could not help but reappear. Bang! After Dika Weber's voice fell, only a few gunshots rang out in the crowd. Wang Feng didn't even try to dodge. A sneer suddenly appeared on his face. Then he stretched out his arms, looked up to the sky, and roared. Legion of Hope! Assemble! With Wang Feng's roar, the surroundings suddenly became as bright as day. Then, countless small fighter planes appeared in the air like ghosts and gathered around Wang Feng. A huge space battleship also slowly descended from the air and came behind Wang Feng. Two huge ship guns were aimed at the people below. This is. All the people below, whether they were on Dika Weber's side or Nicholas's side, were all stunned by the shocking scene in front of them. Of course, the moods of both sides were completely different at this time. It can be said that one was heaven and the other was hell. All the people's eyes were focused on Wang Feng, and those guys with guns had secretly put down their guns. They knew that the current situation was no longer under their control, and even their life and death were in the hands of the man floating in the air. It turned out that after learning about Dika Weber's action plan, Wang Feng contacted Lu Qiang on the Yanhuang. Since Duan Lei and his men were in space, Wang Feng could not contact them directly, so he asked Lu Qiang to pass on the message. In fact, even if Duan Lei and his men did not come, Wang Feng and Number 7 could handle the situation completely. However, in that case, Wang Feng and his men would have to carry out a large-scale killing to calm the situation. Although Wang Feng had no good feelings towards these people at all, he would not feel any uneasiness in his heart even if he killed them. But these people might be the last humans left on this planet. For Wang Feng, this planet is his home planet, and he does not want to exterminate the last humans on his home planet. Although their fate will be quite miserable when the cosmic ghost comes, at least Wang Feng does not want to destroy them himself. Whether the cosmic ghost will come to this planet is still an unknown, so even if there is still a trace of life on this planet, Wang Feng is not going to kill all these people. Therefore, Duan Lei and his men had already prepared to support Wang Feng. For them, entering the planet was a very simple matter, and it would not take them much time. Because of this, such a shocking scene appeared. Wang Feng looked down at the people below, but he did not intend to take this opportunity to educate them and let them know how to make themselves worthy of their title, people. Because he knew that according to the temperament of these people, no matter what he said, he could not change them at all. Maybe now, because of the existence of these fighters, they will be submissive to what he said, and even cry bitterly and regret it. But these are all what they did to survive. After he left, they will still return to their previous temperament. Wang Feng just looked at Dika Weber, then smiled gently and said, "Look. I said I can prove it, right? But I'm not proving it to you, because you don't deserve it. I'm proving it to my brothers, proving that they didn't choose the wrong person. Prove that they are not blind. Prove that they will always be my brothers." Looking at Wang Feng in the air, when he said in a decisive tone that he was his brother, the 100,000 people below all cheered loudly. And the people on Dika Weber's side all had regrets on their faces, especially those who withdrew at the last minute, and they regretted it so much. Originally, they could have stood among those people and cheered with them. But they didn't seize that opportunity. There will be rewards only if you pay. If you want others to treat you, you should first think about whether you treat others the same way. Amid the cheers, Wang Feng slowly lowered his body and came to Nicholas, stretching out his arms. Nicholas immediately gave him a bear hug, then separated and punched Wang Feng on the shoulder. "Feng! You almost scared me to death just now. Ha ha ha." Wang Feng also laughed, and then said, "Nicholas, hurry up and take out all of the food you stored for me. We are ready to leave the East Continent." Wang Feng deliberately emphasized the word all. Nicholas understood and immediately agreed loudly. Then, he called the people behind him and walked towards the place where the food was stored. Wang Feng walked directly to the willow tree, and then put his hand on the trunk of the willow tree. Everyone was surprised to find that the huge willow tree disappeared mysteriously, and the beehive hanging on the willow tree also disappeared. Nicholas led the 100,000 people to start sweeping the food in the Hope Base. As the leader of the Hope Base, he certainly knew where their food was stored. Under the threat of hundreds of thousands of fighter planes, the survivors of Deka Weber's side did not dare to move at all. After making way for Nicholas and his men, they stood there with their heads down, fearing that their actions would cause misunderstandings from those fighter planes. After Wang Feng put away the willow tree and the beehive, he looked at Deka Weber. He originally wanted to kill this guy. But now seeing the fear and regret in this guy's eyes, he suddenly felt that letting this guy live like this might make him more uncomfortable than killing him. So Wang Feng took a few steps forward, looked at Deka Weber and said, "Don't be so scared, don't worry. I won't kill you, because you are not qualified to be my enemy. But you don't have to be happy about this, because I have another not so good news to tell you." Doomsday Special Forces. Author, Huanjing Chengzhu. Chapter 760. Deckard Weber looked at Wang Feng, with a relaxed look in his eyes and a hint of doubt. However, Wang Feng did not continue speaking. Instead, he looked up at the sky and said, "Liza, come down and pick someone up." Following Wang Feng's words, the huge space battleship slowly descended and stopped where the willow tree had been. After that, the lifting platform on the belly of the battleship lowered. Nicholas and the others kept moving the food to the elevator. Since there were 100,000 people, it didn't take long for them to actually move all the food stored in the Hope Base into the battleship. Deka Weber and the others watched helplessly as they emptied the food, but no one dared to express dissatisfaction. They don't even dare to move now, let alone anything else. After moving the food, Nicholas looked at Wang Feng and then at the weapons that those people had thrown on the ground. Naturally, he wanted to ask Wang Feng if he wanted to confiscate those weapons. "Let's just get some useless food. Let's leave those precious weapons to them." Seeing Nicholas' actions, Wang Feng waved his hand and said generously. Puff. Liana couldn't help but laugh. "Okay. You advance to the battleship, and we'll see you on Nanzhou continent." Wang Feng waved to Nicholas and the others, indicating that they should enter the Hope first and ask Duan Lei to take them to Nanzhou continent and live there for a while. After Duanlei and the others are sure to travel through space, they will leave this planet together. Watching the Hope and those small fighters leave, Wang Feng also turned and walked towards the small fighter plane he drove over. When Wang Feng walked towards the small fighter plane, the survivors along the way got out of the way and looked at Wang Feng with frightened faces. Although the huge battleship and countless small fighters had left, and only Wang Feng and Number 7 were left here, they still did not dare to take action against Wang Feng. Not to mention whether Wang Feng can be killed. Even if he is really killed, I am afraid that they will be torn into pieces by the revenge of the next fighter planes. In fact, Wang Feng asked Duanlei and others to come mainly to shock them. If those fighter planes are really allowed to fire, I am afraid that the Clearwater Garden of Hope base will also suffer. After all, they built it with their own hands, how could they destroy it with their own hands? When approaching the small fighter plane, San Xiao suddenly appeared next to the small fighter plane like a ghost, because they knew that they were about to leave. If they don't show up again, I'm afraid they will have to swim back to Nanzhou continent by themselves. As he stepped onto his small fighter plane, Wang Feng seemed to suddenly remember something. He turned around and looked at the survivors who were still looking at him. Ah! I almost forgot. I just told that Deckard Weber that I have some bad news to tell him. Because the small fighter plane was parked outside the Blue Water Garden, and Deckard Weber naturally did not have the courage to follow Wang Feng. He only hoped that Wang Feng would leave immediately, and it would be best if he never saw him again in this life. So now Wang Feng can't see Deckard Weber either. You can hear me, please help me tell him that we have only eliminated a few of the Space Ghost fleets, and they should have a total of no less than 15 space fleets. Especially, because we killed their fleet, so, they will definitely come for revenge. They know the coordinates of this planet very clearly. So, before they arrive, enjoy the life you choose. After saying that, Wang Feng ignored the survivors who seemed to have been struck by a bolt from the blue, got directly into the fighter plane, drove the small fighter plane into the sky, and flew towards the Nanzhou continent in the already slightly bright sky. Wang Feng understood that because of his words, it was likely that the Hope base would be in chaos again. People in despair will become extremely crazy. Wang Feng had already clearly realized this when the world-destroying skyfire came. However, this obviously has nothing to do with Wang Feng. After leaving this time, he will never return to the Hope base he established with full confidence. Because real hope is built by people. Wherever they are, the base of hope is there. When we arrived at Nanzhou continent, it was already bright, and Nicholas and the others had already disembarked from the Hope and were surrounding the Yanhuang, praising them constantly. The body of Yanhuang is much larger than that of Hope, so it is naturally more shocking. As for the space battleship of the Kali tribe, they simply ignored it because of the existence of the Yanhuang. At this time, the optical transmission equipment had been completely installed and debugged, and Meng Fei and Lu Wanting had basically learned how to operate it. About 1 kilometer away from the Yanhuang, the survivors on the Yanhuang were busy building wooden houses and other residences. Because looking at the progress of Duanlei and the others, it seems that in just a few months, they can't guarantee that they can successfully pass the space stack point. During this period, it may be their last time on this planet. Therefore, although there is enough space on the Yanhuang, they still want to build temporary residences on the ground. Even Nicholas and some of the survivors ran over to help with great interest. However, they were just helping out, and they didn't want to live here themselves. Unlike the survivors who had been on the battleship for nearly a year, they had never lived in a space battleship before. Therefore, the current space battleship was still a novelty for them, and they certainly would not refuse to live in the battleship. Even though this battleship was now parked on the planet and not traveling in space, it was still very attractive to them. Although Lu Qiang had received Wang Feng's instructions to help them arrange their accommodation, and they had long been anxious to see their new residence. But at this time, no one of them ran into the Yanhuang, but all stayed outside waiting for Wang Feng. Their meaning was very clear. They came here because of Wang Feng. Without Wang Feng's personal order, they would definitely not agree. This is an attitude and a promise. Lu Qiang was very satisfied with their approach, so he didn't force them and let them stay outside. Anyway, Wang Feng would be back soon. The small fighter plane driven by Wang Feng did not fly directly into the Yanhuang, but stopped outside. During this period, he might need to use this small fighter plane, and Wang Feng, naturally, did not plan to stay in the Yanhuang during this period. Before going to the mother planet, perhaps this period of time is his last period of relaxing vacation, and Wang Feng must enjoy it. After jumping off the fighter plane, Wang Feng first met with Nicholas and others, and then took them into the Yanhuang, and formally introduced them to Lu Qiang and others. From this time on, Nicholas and others, like Inovik and others, have truly become a member of the Hope Base. Afterwards, Wang Feng brought the three children to the Kali tribe's warship. Because he still has to fulfill his promise to replenish energy for the Kali tribe's warship. This is simple for Wang Feng now. In less than half an hour, he replenished enough energy for the Kali tribe's warship. The leader of the Kali tribe looked at Sang Xiao, then at Wang Feng, and then sighed. Human. Thank you. We, the Kali tribe, will remember your kindness. No need for this. Wang Feng still had a grudge against the world-destroying Sci-Fi, so he shook his head and said. This is just a deal between us, but don't worry, kill them, I will fulfill my promise and try my best to protect them. And after arriving at the primordial star, I will also help them to find the Kali tribe members on the primordial star. Yet, the leader of the Kali tribe knew what Wang Feng was thinking, so he didn't say much, just nodded, and then stretched out his hand. If I remember correctly, this should be the etiquette of you humans when you say goodbye, right? Wang Feng paused. He remembered that the etiquette of shaking hands should be used when they first met, right? But it doesn't matter, why correct him? Just let him be confused for the rest of his life. Goodbye. I hope you can find a planet suitable for your survival, but to be honest, I really don't want to see you again. Wang Feng said, holding the hand of the leader of the Kali tribe. Haha. If you don't add the last sentence, maybe our separation this time will seem more perfect. The leader of the Kali tribe smiled and said. Maybe. Wang Feng suddenly sighed. But, there has never been anything truly perfect in this world. The Kali tribe, the human race, the devourer or the cosmic ghost. In fact, we are all just. Wang Feng's eyes suddenly became a little blurred. Just what? The leader of the Kali tribe was very surprised. Nothing. It's just, I suddenly feel a little emotional. Wang Feng regained his mind and said with a slightly unnatural smile. Seeing that Wang Feng was unwilling to talk, the elder of the Kali tribe did not ask any more questions, but nodded to Wang Feng and said. Then we will leave. Goodbye. Goodbye. Wang Feng also nodded, then turned and walked down the Kali tribe's warship. You three should go too. Remember, stay by his side, this human is definitely not simple. Maybe, he can really bring the human race to a peak. The leader of the Kali tribe looked at Wang Feng's back and said to the three children.